Hello, this is wmpyr. I received several questions, so I will try to answer them in this video. Okay, so the first one is when you're using the sticks and you're making these circular motions, and then when you go to the knife, how do you transfer those circular motions to the knife, which the motions are going to become smaller? So is there a way to do that? That is the question that I pretty much gotten. So yeah, there's two methods that I recommend. Number one is something I call the vector method, which I remember reading in a Eskrima book that I got from the library. This was like years ago. I don't remember the name of the book or anything, but in it, the guy mentioned vector, and my understanding of that is something that I think is very, very valuable for Eskrima training. So the first thing is when you're using the sticks, you know, and you're swinging them around and you're following the forms and stuff. When you're doing that, you should be working on two things. Number one is control, right? And by control, I mean the speed. So you're not just going super fast, that you could go slower, that you can control the speed, and also the power. So you're not just going full force like crazy, like all wild, and you know you're going to be dangerous. That you can control the speed and power. And then with that also comes being able to see the angle that you're creating. So you want to be able to actually see the line, okay, that is made through your motions. So those are the two things that you should be working on. So once you put in enough time and practice that you could do those things, then the next step is what he called the vector. And the vector is basically being able to change the shape of what you're doing here. So if you're doing an X, right, you create an X pattern like this, okay? So this is a pretty standard X, right? So you're going diagonal down, a pretty standard X. Now, if you change the shape, you can make it very, very tall and thin, or you can make it very, very wide and flat, okay? So that's changing the shape. Are you going to go conventional, or it's going to be like this, or it's going to be like this, you know, or more well balanced? So that's changing the shape. So when you start practicing that and you're able to change the shape, the next step would be like if you're doing circular motions, you can make these big wide circles. You could also make them more like egg shaped, like an oval or a football shape, okay? And then of course you can make them smaller as well. So you could also change the shape of circles, right? So the vector training is one that I recommend. Number two is that with the Eskrima stick, the standard Eskrima stick is like what, 26, 28 inches in length. Okay, so from there, you're going to go to a training knife. And, you know, the training knife, if you have it too small, like your EDC knife, it might be a small utility knife, you know, utility folding knife. And if it's small, you're going from an Eskrima stick all the way down to a utility folder like this. That could be, you know, even if you open it, you know, it'll be like that. That's a big gap. So what I recommend for you guys is to use a training knife, and this one's from Cold Steel. Use a training knife that's as big as you can find. So roughly like 12 inches, a foot long. That would be a good thing to do. So you want your training knife to go as big as possible. It's still going to be a lot smaller than the stick, but if it's too small, like I said, it's going to feel very, very weird, and you're not going to do a good job translating the moves. And, you know, with something that's longer like this, okay, it's still small, so it'll naturally make your movements smaller. So that's a good thing, all right? And that'll help you naturally do that. So I recommend start training. Make sure that it's a training knife, and make sure that it is on the larger side, okay? So I totally recommend. I know a lot of people say, well, get a folding training folding knife that represents the actual one that you're going to be carrying. So a lot of people go there. I say you're going way too fast. Wait, you're jumping to conclusions. So before you go there, get something like this. Okay, get something like this, and I call this a bridge weapon. So get a training knife that's like, uh, around 12 inches, a foot long. So get something like that. So anyway, the other question that I got is that imagine the bad guy has a knife and you are able to attack him from behind. So in that case, could you please show a fail-proof method to take this guy out from behind? Okay. So the situation, they said, if I have a stick or if I don't have a stick, barehanded. So both situations. And he also said something about hitting them on the top of the head as well. So anyway, so in a situation like that, look, we're not assassins. We're talking about self-defense. We still want to be responsible civilians. So in that kind of situation, this is not, I'm in war, I'm a soldier, and I got to take this guy out. That's not what we're doing here, okay? So this is a self-defense situation. So maybe this guy is attacking my loved one, all right? So I see it happening, okay? So in that kind of situation, they don't see me coming yet. So in that kind of situation, how can I get this person off of my loved one, family or friend or whatever, okay? So in this kind of situation, if I have the ability to knock this person out, that would be great because, the back is to me. I have a clear shot. If I'm able to knock them out cold with one hit, that would be great. That would be great. So in that kind of type situation, I recommend that you practice power because if you don't have the power, you're not going to knock them out. So how do you develop power? Well, with Filipino martial arts, I've always recommended to you guys, first and foremost, make sure that you work on power. You work on full swing motions. Why? Because power is important in a real life situation. It is a weapon that you want to have, a very powerful shot, You don't have to always use it, but it's nice to have that, right? And you know how to hit hard if you need to. And the other thing is, it helps with your body mechanics. It helps you move well, okay? So by working on power, like I said, you don't have to use it, but if you need to, or even if you don't, you'll have good body mechanic motions. It teaches you that. So that's why I recommend to you guys, work on power first and foremost, okay? So that's important, number one, okay? And the other thing is, if you are gonna really actually hit this guy, having a good body mechanics and good technique is important. But if you've never really hit stuff, how are you supposed to do it? So you need to hit things. Okay, so that's number two. So practice full swings, but then you also have to practice actually hitting something, making actual powerful contact. So those are the two things that I recommend for striking wise, okay? The next thing is, there are, of course, grappling techniques that you could use. You could put them in chokes and stuff like that. So if you're empty-handed, yeah, you could put them in a rear naked choke or something along those lines. You got to watch out for the knife, but, you could put them in locks and chokes and whatnot. There's also techniques that you could do similar stuff, grappling moves with the stick, okay? The only thing about that, the stick can definitely make your choke 10 times stronger, okay? 10 times worse for the bad guy. The only problem is because you're in close proximity with them and you try to put the stick like on their neck or something, they might take it away and use it against you. So if that's the case, which, that's just reality, you have to be comfortable with that. You have to know how to fight off them trying to take away your weapon. And if you're not familiar with that and you've never done that before, then it's better you just hit them. And that sucks because being able to grapple them can be a very nice alternative. Because, like, for example, let's say they have a knife on your loved one and they're on the ground right there. And you just came in and you don't have time. You don't have time to go get a gun or whatever, call the cops or whatever. You don't have time. So at that point, if you hit them, you might knock them out, but that force might also make them stab your loved one, you know? So in that case, it would be better if you were able to pull them away with the stick and then go into a grappling move and maybe turn it into a choke or something. That would be way, way better. So it depends on the situation, of course. So it's nice to have those kinds of alternatives, options, but also remember, options are like for advanced, okay? So when it comes down to it, you got to know thyself, keep things very, very simple. And if you just don't have those kinds of experience, then I would say, even if you learn some of those kinds of moves, but you don't really have experience with it, I wouldn't use it. I would stay safe and just use what you're very, very familiar with, because comfort goes a long way. So anyway, that's it for now. Thank you for viewing, and take care, folks.